Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going, well, back to the future to take a hard look at the very foundation of how we all learn. I mean, is the model we've relied on for over 100 years even right for the world we live in now? Let's dig in and see if maybe, just maybe, the past holds the key.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty big question. Is our school system basically a factory, an assembly line that was perfectly designed for an industrial world that, well, it just doesn't exist anymore? This one question is really at the heart of everything we're going to explore.
And that question leads us directly to the core problem. We're calling it the outdated assembly line. Think about it. Our world is moving at lightning speed. It's dynamic. It's constantly changing. But our schools, they often feel kind of stuck.
You know, this whole industrial mindset, it actually has a name. It's called Taylorism. And look, for manufacturing, it was a brilliant system. It's all built on standardization, predictability, and efficiency. And doesn't that sound an awful lot like school? You've got the ringing bells, everyone moving at the same pace, kids grouped together in batches. The entire system was designed for predictable outcomes, just like a factory.
The source material we're drawing from uses this fantastic metaphor for this. It says we're stuck in the bathtub of predictability. Now, this system works perfectly when everything is stable and known, when you're inside the calm water of the tub. But our world? It is definitely not in the tub anymore. It's messy, it's complex, it's unpredictable, and in that environment, that old factory logic just completely breaks down.
Okay, so if the factory model is failing us, what's the alternative? What if the answer isn't something brand new, but something incredibly old, a powerful, natural learning instinct that we've kind of forgotten about? Let's explore how we humans are actually built to learn.
The core concept here is called LOPI. It's short for learning by observing and pitching in. You might also hear it called incidental learning. And honestly, it's how humans have learned for almost all of our history. You watch others, you start to help out a little bit, and then you gradually take on more and more real responsibility right there in your community.
And this kind of learning is just fundamentally different. It's about real responsibility, not just practice problems on a worksheet. You're learning something because the community actually needs it done right now. It happens in mixed age groups, where the younger kids learn from the older ones, and the older ones get even better by having to teach. And most importantly, it has a real public impact. Your work actually matters to other people.
Now, to be really clear, this isn't some romantic, unstructured, let the kids run wild kind of idea. Not at all. The source material puts it perfectly. Incidental learning isn't a romantic nature program. It's precise, just at the pace of life, not the bell. It has its own rhythm, its own structure, but it's driven by purpose and need, not by a schedule.
This connects to a really powerful idea. Children as a cultural backup. Research on hunter-gatherer societies shows that kids weren't just learners, they were co-providers. They held vital knowledge about plants, about trails, about all kinds of essential skills. And having them hold that knowledge made the entire community more resilient and way more able to handle a crisis.
Okay, so that's the ancient wisdom. But the billion-dollar question is, how do we apply that to our modern world? That's the real challenge. And the answer is a vision called co-learning, a way to weave learning back into the very fabric of the real world.
A great way to picture this is something called the Ballenberg Principle. It's named after a Swiss open-air museum. So imagine all the traditional crafts in that museum: baking, weaving, building. Now, imagine they weren't just exhibits behind a rope. Imagine they were part of a living, breathing, productive community happening for real every single day.
So in practice, this means young people aren't just sitting in classrooms. They're out there producing real goods, like bread that gets sold in a neighborhood bakery. They're providing real services, repairing bicycles, helping out with elder care, maybe creating a local podcast. They're solving actual problems their community is facing. Learning becomes doing. And this shift is a total reversal of the old model. Instead of the bell schedule, pacing is driven by purpose and the need to master a skill. The place of learning moves from an isolated classroom to sociable, productive spaces like workshops or kitchens. And maybe the biggest change of all? The learner is no longer just a passive consumer of content, but a co-producer of real value.
Now, you might be thinking this all sounds a little low-tech, a bit old-fashioned, but this vision fully embraces technology, just in a very specific way. It's about using tools that empower people rather than tools that control them.
The philosophy here is deeply inspired by this radical 20th century thinker, Ivan Illich. He dreamed up things like learning webs to connect people who want to learn with people who could teach. And he talked about sociable places, like workshops or studios, that would act as a kind of public infrastructure for learning to happen.
Illich had a name for these kinds of tools. He called them convivial tools. And the crucial idea is that a convivial tool expands what you are able to do. It's an assistant, not a manager. It helps you act, but it never ever does the acting for you.
And this brings us to a critical choice we have to make right now with AI. We can build controlling AI that acts like a digital manager, setting the pace, surveilling students, proctoring tests. Or we can build convivial AI that acts like a personal assistant, providing feedback, helping with documentation, and offering explanations right when you need them. The co-learning vision? It embraces the assistant, not the manager.
So all of this leads to a pretty profound conclusion. The challenge here isn't really about just fixing schools. It's much bigger than that. It's about freeing learning itself from the confines of a single institution and weaving it back into the fabric of society.
The ultimate goal, then, is to transform learning from a monopoly, held by one type of institution, into a form of public infrastructure. It should be as accessible and as integrated into our daily lives as a library, a park, or a public square. And maybe the key image to hold on to is this. It's about replacing one sound with another. We need to move away from the school bell, that gong that rings children out of real life, and instead learn to hear the hum of public doing that calls them into it. Which leaves us with one final essential question to ponder. What if learning stopped being a separate preparation for life and instead became life itself?